Greetings, guys. Griffey here from the Film Alchemist and the Longbox Sessions. Today, talking to you on Nerd Alchemist. A lot of our listeners for Film Alchemist hit me up and they said, Griff, you're a horror movie lover. Surely you saw The Turning. And a lot of people had questions about the ending, man. So I thought I'd take a shot today trying to talk you through the ending, what I thought about the ending. So here we go. Now, let me start off by this. I've seen people killing The Turning online. The Turning prior to the ending was an absolutely above average horror movie, right? Good acting, good atmosphere, good set, right? That's a good horror movie house for ghost stories to happen. But I think the ending is where it starts to fall apart, right? And a movie like this, when you set this up as a mystery, right? A story of intrigue, whodunit almost. I think the ending becomes more important, right? So let's start with near the end of the movie. Our lead character, right, Mackenzie Davis's character, receives an envelope from her mother, right? I'm not even sure it had postage on it. Weird in general that they would know where to mail it to her, but, maybe the staff did it. She opens it up, and unlike her mother's other drawings, right, these are very dark, textured charcoal drawings, right? So then we proceed on to a sequence of events, right? So we see a ghost sexual assault, right, from the caretaker, Quint. The nanny revealed, or the governess was her name? Yeah, that character, the old lady, the angry old lady, revealed essentially that she knew he had did it and she had killed Quint. Quint then takes it upon himself to throw her over the balcony and kill her, right? Even though he could have done that at any time to avenge his murder. She gathers the children from ensuing ghost assaults, right? A weird scene in this sequence is as we're running from the murderous ghost of Quint, who's now killed the old lady, another ghost with feminine hands is running her hair through the girl's finger. Or her fingers through the girl's hair, let's say. She gets the kids out. They drive to the gate, right? The gate they can never escape. Cut to, we flash all the way back. Wayne's World. And we go back to her opening the charcoal drawing. Then we have a very brief sequence of her with the kids. Again, she thinks she sees Quint's ghost. She thinks the girl sees it. The girl refuses. She breaks the girl's doll. And I think this leads Finn Wolfhard's character to say, some dolls can't be fixed. Something along those lines, right? A little shot across the bow, perhaps at her and her mother. We then zoom into her very eyeball, right? The eyes being the door to the mind, as they were. And she's now standing in the pool. And in the pool is her mother, drawing feverishly. We don't see her face. She turns around, stares at her daughter, and the daughter lets out a scream. We don't see the face, and it cuts to black. Now, my experience personally, my entire theater, you heard just an audible groan of disgust when this movie ended, right? That was the last thing we saw. So let's kind of look at some of the evidence as laid out, right? I don't understand why. There are a couple things that stuck out to me, right? One, if this movie is telling me at the end that all of this was a nonsensical dream sequence, I hate this movie, right? I try not to hate movies, especially horror movies, man. As I get older, I think it's harder and harder to get movies made, so I like to show some respect. But any movie that ends in "it was all a dream" to me is a waste of time. Why do I care about this story if none of it was real and the stakes aren't real? And I guess the argument against that would be, well, it's about mental health and that's, a hard image to show on screen. Fine, fair enough, man. I don't think this movie does anything to illustrate or illuminate the struggles of being mentally ill. It essentially never touches it until perhaps convenient for the ending. So here are some things that stuck out for me. If the ghost of the nanny, right, the previous teacher, is leading her out to the pond, and she dives in the pond and finds the body, right? The ghost has led her to the body. That should matter. So she finds the body. We go back in the house only to see that ghost still getting sexually assaulted by Quint, right? This ghostly image of a horrid event that happened in this house. And then, presumably, that was the hand running through the little girl's hair. So that teacher's still there. So what was the fucking point of finding the body if it didn't help anything or didn't solve anything, man? And maybe it would have had they gotten out of the gate, right? So the other thing I've heard is that they're all ghosts trapped in this endless loop. Again, that's a bullshit story to me. If there's no actual rooting in the real world from at least one character, I find it hard to latch onto, right? And in my mind, I love going as, out there as I can with movie symbolisms, right? So how I saw the ending play is that perhaps all of this was the dream of the mom sitting in the pool, right? So first off, the fact that at this mental ward they just let a lady sit in the pool with art supplies and draw all day seems highly unlikely, right? Like this seems almost impossible for that to be something that could exist. So that was kind of a red flag in my mind, thinking back, trying to process what I thought the ending might be. So we have this lady in the pool, right? The first thing we see is she hands a drawing to the daughter, right? Who she seemingly doesn't interact with an enormous amount, right? So that drawing to me lets me know this could be a character she's created, right? I think if you look at the movie in the way of all of these characters in this fictional house, right? This could have been crafted in the mind of this poor woman suffering from mental illness, right? The house is what could have been, right? The whole thought, they're thoroughbreds, right? They're unbroken people as she finds herself in this pool. So the way I looked at it, she, the older, the mom, right, or the old governess lady, is the lady who didn't really do enough and lets it happen. Mackenzie Davis' character becomes the ghost of what the mom could have been, right? This was her idealized self before she got broken. And then the little girl could have even been, or Anne Finn Wolfhard could have been the two paths of children she wished she had had. I think you could look at the teacher who died. Maybe that's more of the sad way that she envisions how it went for her. That once her illness took over, she feels like a part of her did die, right? Her ability to be with the child and this and that. That's kind of what I was thinking, right? Is that there feels like there are three different divergent paths of this woman's life that were all cut short by mental illness. And then at the end, when Mackenzie Davis, we go into the mind, right, through the eye, not particularly subtle. I think that's telling us that a lot of this is, theater of the mind. And when she sees the woman in the pool, right, we don't see that. I think that's supposed to be a mirror image, where this is the fictionalized, idealized heroine version of herself, Mackenzie Davis, dealing with what reality, crashing into the reality of her as a mentally ill person stuck here, in her reality. And that was horrifying to her. Some problems with that. The roommate. I couldn't quite suss out the roommate. To me, that could be a caretaker or a nurse, perhaps. Fine. Okay, that makes sense because she's calling someone outside of the, her delusion mansion, if you will. So maybe that's, a nice nurse, someone who helps take care of her, right? They seem to have that very nurturing relationship. I don't know what Quint could be because I'm not a mental health expert, but it seems to me the kind of issue she's suffering would be more than just caused by one traumatic incident, right? Maybe there was an incident that sparked it to get worse. Maybe that's what Quint represents. And even Finn Wolfhard becomes hard to describe where he would fit into this metaphor, if this is all, shattered Black Mirror versions of a woman's broken mind and the divergent paths that her life could have taken. But anyways, that's the closest I could come to making some meaning of this, right? And I was struck by how mad people were. It made me think back to other kind of ambiguous movie endings, right? And what I thought about was 2001. That's something you hear people talk about a lot. The difference to me is that 2001, I don't think anyone still to this day knows exactly what it means. And it means a lot to a lot of us differently, right? But I think what 2001's ending does, right, is one, that's a movie about big questions, about leaps forward, evolution, the future of our species, right? And intelligent life in general. And what I think the end of 2001 does is it butts us right up to this enormous feeling of insignificance, right? Whether it's the monolith, which seems a little more magical in nature, or hell, which is the future of us being replaced by robotics and AI, way before its time. And so we spent the whole movie feeling smaller, smaller, smaller. And the scope of space and everything and the music makes us feel so small that ending, through all of its insane imagery, is us going through the leap, an evolutionary leap where we might not understand it, and at the end we are reborn as a star child, right? None of it makes sense to us. We're too small to comprehend it in our current state. So that ending, while it doesn't say definitively what's happening, it puts us into this evolutionary leap, which is a perfect summation of that movie, right? It feels very fitting for that movie to end, right? I don't know how else you would end that movie in a satisfactory way. And all of this is to say, I think ending a movie is wildly hard. Any screenwriter will tell you the third act is the hardest to write. Because everyone is doing the whole, mental work of the movie to make it their own. That's really tough, right? The problem with The Turning is it sets up this kind of mystery ghost story. And at the end of the movie, if it wants to summarize what it's like to be lost in a broken mind, right? A mind suffering the horrors of mental illness, I don't think the movie did anything to address that. Other than the mom, we don't see anyone else seemingly grappling with mental health issues. The closest we come is people not believing Mackenzie Davis. And that, while that is a source of horror, it doesn't feel equivalent to the experience of this shattered mind, right? This woman in the pool. And so the movie's asking me, one, if it's real, what is the point of any of this movie, right? And if it's all a giant symbolism piece for mental illness, what is the point of this movie? And I think that's the problem, is either way, I didn't find a satisfactory emotional tie. And I don't think every movie has to end with a, we beat the bad guy, let's walk into the sunset. But I don't truly know what I'm supposed to take from this movie. I didn't feel like I journeyed through a mentally ill experience. And in the real world, if it just ends with a ghost and a dead old lady, and she's now trapped in the house, why? Why did they even need to call this lady to teach those kids? Why couldn't the old lady do it? There are all these real world problems that become seemingly gaping plot holes if this is all set in the real world. And so I think that's the problem to take from this, is you have a movie, it's a tale of two movies, right? This is a pretty standard ghost tale whodunit, right? Something bad happened at this house and we don't know what it is and we want to find out. And then at the ending, we get kind of a rushed, the old lady did it because this guy was bad and the parents died in a car crash we're not going to address. So we don't get our mystery ending that we hope. And the movie's not really introspective enough to justify the kind of film student symbolism ending, which I think was a bummer. So that's my 2 cents on it, man. Is I think The Turning was a fine horror movie. And that's the problem, is that I think movies are remembered by moments, right? 1 or 2 moments are what most of us remember, even from movies we love, man. We just don't have enough brain space to hold it all. And the sad thing to me is, the great acting, the unbelievable set design, the atmosphere, all of these good things in The Turning are going to be washed away because it just felt like a creative team that hadn't settled on what kind of movie they wanted to give us and gave us halves of 2 different tales. And I think if you just go one or the other and really focus in, I think that movie is remembered pretty fondly. I think it was a solid movie other than that. So that's it, guys. That's my take on the ending of The Turning. Please subscribe to the channel, and down in the comments, tell me what you think the ending of that movie means. Did I totally miss the obvious symbolisms and meanings, and you can illuminate me? That'd be great, man. As always, you can check us out on the Film Alchemist podcast, the Long Box Sessions podcast, and you can check out my other YouTube channel, Nick Hall Comedy, if you're in for something a little lighter. Until next time, adios, friends.